that's me. My name is C.B. Cebulski. I'm the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, and welcome to what we call the Marvel Fanfare panel. Joe Quesada used to have a panel called Cup of Joe, where he would get together and talk to the fans about all things Marvel and all things fun. And I kind of adopted that as my format for the show, bringing up special guests, talking about all things Marvel, not just comic related, so there will be some surprises today. And if you stick around, there will be a very special comic we'll be giving at the end that we'll be talking about. But there's a lot to get through this panel, so if you don't mind, we're going to get right into it. All right. Sometimes I still can't believe that I'm in this job and I get to work with some of my childhood heroes, people who wrote and drew the comics growing up and made such an impact on me, my personal life and my professional life. And one of those people who has made the biggest impact on me as the editor-in-chief of Marvel, and my understanding of art and storytelling is comic book legend, and as the documentary says, American genius, Mr. Frank Miller! Wow, goosebumps every time.
Hello.
How are you today, Frank?
Doing good. How you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on to the panel.
Of course.
I've had the honor of getting to do a couple of these with you, and we've gotten to talk about a bunch of different things. But I think a lot of this crowd, this massive crowd here in New York, knows of your work, but may not know a little bit about you and your upbringing, and that's kind of what this panel is about, to talk about how certain people are influenced by other artists. So I was wondering, now you grew up here on the East Coast, and I was wondering if you could tell us what's the origin of Frank Miller as the comic book reader, as the comic book fan?
I grew up in Vermont. Yeah.
Vermont.
And I grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons back when they were just shown on Saturday mornings, and seeing old cartoons like from way back when, like World War II and stuff, featuring Superman. They were always my favorite. Turns out they were made back in World War II. Just rerunning over all the decades. And then my dad, who was a traveling salesman, he would come back from New York City, and he would bring me comic books because the only comic books that were for sale back then were available at pharmacies, and so they were. You could never know what you'd find, and I had no idea the world of comics that was starting to form. Time passed, and I got to I saw my first comic shop and couldn't believe it. You could actually buy old ones, that kind of thing. And I got exposed step by step to the beautiful world of comics.
Now, as an artist, was there a pivotal moment or a panel or an issue where you said you thought you might want to do this for a living, or was it a more gradual, decision as you were, making your way through comic books and through life, high school and college and whatnot?
Oh, I was drawn since pretty much as soon as I learned how to read, I was drawing comics. Might have been earlier than that. Because they were perfect in a way, because they're one thing you could do where you don't need anything but the most rudimentary tools, and you just need a pencil and some sheets of typing paper and maybe a ballpoint pen or and such, and you can make your own comics. And it was as silly and childish as this. When I was 5 years old. Thanks. When I was 5 years old, I walked into my mother's kitchen and said, "Daddy, I'm going to make comic books. That's what I'm going to do from now on." And she said, "Well," after she said, "Frank, you can do anything you want to, you set your mind to it." She said, "Why don't you make one about a doughboy?" At the time she was making bread. Now I didn't realize that she was referring to World War I flying bases. And I saw what dough could do. She would punch it and it would get bigger. She could stretch it. And so I made up a hero named Doughboy who could get bigger and you punched him and stretch and so on. But from then, that was my first comic book, and I was just in love with doing them, with drawing and writing stories, and it's stories about heroes. And so I grew up on, Superboy, the Legion of Superheroes, and Superboy comics, and Batman 80-page giants, and all of that. And then along came Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and everything changed. And I realized just how much more seemingly operatic and emotional and Shakespearean comic could be in scope. And it was about the time that comics ended their adolescence, and so did I. So ever since then, I've been part of that, and have been doing my best to push comics a bit further into their maturity.
There's so many masterpieces that you've created that we could talk about, but I did want to talk a little bit about Daredevil. Do you remember first getting the call to work on Daredevil? Was it a character you had interest in, or did it catch you by surprise?
I remember precisely what happened. I had been bouncing around from one assignment to another. See, the way it worked was that Jim Shooter was running Marvel Comics, and I was looking for a regular gig because that's what you really needed in order to keep going in comics. And I was offered one over at the competition, and I went to Jim Shooter and said, "Look, I've been offered Claw the Unconquered over at DC," and he said, "Well, I don't think you're good enough to have a regular book, Frank, but I promise to keep you busy." And I knew Jim was a man of his word, and so he kept me busy, and doing various Marvel heroes. And along the way, I did a fill-in two-part of the Spectacular Spider-Man. And the sidekick in it was Daredevil, who was really considered a kind of a loser character at Marvel at the time. And I kind of started thinking this Daredevil guy is cool. He's basically all the other guys are known that can fly or they're super strong or something. Making this guy's known as you can't see. So that's everybody else has got it. Everybody else has got some extraordinary ability. He's got a major disability, and which made him, to my mind, a natural detective, and because he could figure it out from the way things sounded and smelled and everything what was going on. And after doing the two-part story, which was written by Bill Mantlo, I started lobbying to get the Daredevil job. Again, good luck. About that time, the Gene Colan, who'd been on Daredevil for 150 years, as far as I can tell, just had enough. He didn't want to do it anymore. And I applied for the job, got it.
That's awesome. Fantastic. This pays off. Now, of course, there's so many different runs of yours that we could talk about in the Daredevil. Born Again was something I think that was extremely special. That was something that you and Dave Mazzucchelli worked on.
Yes.
And what were some of the origins of this story? Because it had such an emotional core to it that I think resonates with Daredevil fans for first-time readers or people, long-term readers who read it on a yearly basis almost.
Yeah, with Born Again, it's interesting. Sometimes you might jump onto a character and say, okay, I'm gonna take him over here, I'm gonna take him over there. In the case of Born Again, I essentially wanted to strip Matt Murdock down. And basically reduce him down to nothing, and to show who he really was. And so I blew up his house, and cost him his job, and goodness knows what I did to his girlfriend, and in that way, I gave myself the opportunity to come back and rebuild him, and stripped of all the comforts and all the appurtenances. He was an opportunity to make him more heroic than ever, and to get down to the heart and soul of who Matt Murdock was.
True, great, thank you. And now, the storytelling is such an amazing part of that, with you and Dave working together, as you as the writer, and working together as one of the ultimate collaborations between two amazing creators. And it's going to be collected here in a 6x9 edition coming up. It's the first one, given the fact that art, even at a smaller size, is just so beautiful. And now, you as a storyteller, your artwork has affected the generations to come after you, and I think we've talked about this at length. So many people have gone on to adopt not only the greatness of your writing and the way that you tell stories with the emotional core breaking them down, but also your layouts and the way that you move characters flawlessly. And if you don't mind, I'd like to bring out two creators who were extremely influenced by you, and I think you've met them before, but ladies and gentlemen, we put our hands together for Mr. Charles Soule and Mr. Steve McNiven.
Not me again.
Guys, thanks for joining us on stage.
Well, thanks for having us. This is quite a nicely full room. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I know, Charles, you've met Frank before.
Yep,
And
yeah.
Steve, actually, we did a panel together, and it went so well, I think we could come back out here. And it's kind of a follow-up to something we talked about last year as well. But first, I just wanted people to get to know you two a little and your collaborations, because there have been a number of them over the last decade at Marvel.
That's right. So when I was a baby writer at Marvel, I had done almost nothing at Marvel.
They're hiring babies now.
Exactly, little tiny babies. So I was a tiny baby, and they hired me, and I had done a short run on She-Hulk, and I had done a bit of work on Thunderbolts, and then they came to me and they said, would you like to kill Wolverine? And I said, well, that sounds like a heck of a book. And then they said, well, you would be doing it with Steve McNiven. And I was,
No.
right, no, I was blown away, right? Like Steve was a legend then, even more of a legend now, and we did that book. It was 4 issues. It was a wonderful experience for me. I hope it was a good experience for Steve.
That's fantastic.
And then we've gone on to do a lot of collaborations ever since then. We did a great run on Uncanny Inhumans. We did Return of Wolverine when we brought him back from the dead. We did some Star Wars together. It's been amazing. So I feel like, I don't know, you're one of my most frequent collaborators, and what a wonderful thing. Yeah.
No,
So,
we've had a great time together at Marvel. That was really good to us to allow us to tell a whole bunch of different stories,
mhm.
and we get a chance to do some work.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking earlier, about you think about these amazing collaborations. And you can tell sometimes when you're reading a comic book, like what creators are jiving. And I think we always feel, when we read your work, that you two are just on the same page now. Can you talk about a little bit about your collaboration? As a writer and an artist, people might not know how that really works, and like some editors stay in the middle, but I think you guys always talk directly when you're working on projects as well, too. Like, what's the magic of a great comic collaboration?
I think, that's hilarious, Steve, but it is kind of sometimes. There's a lot of social time. Like, Steve and I have become really good friends when we're not working out on a book directly. We're also hanging out a lot, and so, we have things that we like to do. We get on the phone, we catch up, so we know what's going on in each other's lives, and we know each other's families and all those things. So that, I think the person-to-person connection is really important, particularly for us. But ultimately, to me, it all really comes down to trust. I know that whatever scene I write, whatever idea I have, is going to be masterfully executed and drawn by Steve. And I think at this point, he's got faith in me that if I say this is the way I think this scene should play out, that it's not based on nothing, that there's thought behind it. And so that level of trust just lets you start taking risks, taking a lot of risks in the storytelling about things that might not pay off without that level of connection.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Charles and I have known each other for a long time. We jumped into the deep end of the pool with The Death of Wolverine. And I had never, I've read his work, but we've never worked together. But sometimes you just get lucky and you click with co-creators and turn out to just be friends. And a lot of times, a lot of things that come through in terms of the stories that we end up telling are just the two of us going, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a story about,
Yeah.
Now, Frank, when you've worked with other artists, how has the collaboration been for you? Do you like that contact between you, or do you prefer some distance, as I know some other writers do, like from the artists, let them do their thing?
I've worked every conceivable way there, yes. And it's, to me, every collaboration is something that has to be created. For instance, working with David Mazzucchelli, he preferred the structure of a full-out script with descriptions of what the art is, and then the final words, etc. Because it was within the panel that he was most explosive in his creativity, and he wanted to know exactly what everybody was thinking so that he could keep his artwork to make use of his tremendous ability to cartoon and expression, to get its every last nuance. With other people, like the great John Buscema, he just wanted to know what was going on, and then he would throw his own humanity and touches into it, and I would just come in and just write the hell out of it because the opportunities were so wonderful.
That's awesome. John was the master.
Whereas with Bill Sienkiewicz, we were like two kids playing dangerous playground games. Because we were daring each other constantly. We were. He was especially at the time absorbing so much about the related disciplines of illustration, etc. That I would see the influence of Ralph Steadman, Bob Peak, etc. climbing into the story. And the story just grew like Topsy. And so, what started out as a 4-issue series doubled in length, and I wrote every episode twice because I would write him a script, and he would send back the artwork, and I would see I'd see places where it didn't make any sense, and places where there were opportunities I never dreamt of. To just come in and improve it. And it goes on. I mean, I do regard collaboration as I don't know, I imagine the basketball player going one-on-one with one player in the net. He doesn't play exactly the same.
So true, so true. And now, speaking of collaborations, guys, last year on this panel we hinted at a secret project that you have both been working on. And I think today we're going to have the pleasure of letting the people in this room be the first people to see the fruits of your newest labors. Ladies and gentlemen, the newest series coming from Marvel next year is going to be Daredevil, A Cold Day in Hell by Charles and Steve.
Yeah, this is incredibly exciting to have this book finally going to be announced. We've been working on this book for 4 years. I think it'll be close to 5 by the time it finally launches. And that time has been really well spent. I think we've been working on it steadily all that time. And you'll see are we going to show pages or anything or any?
Oh, well, maybe.
Okay.
And I think this is one of the things, again, where this panel comes full circle is, the influence that you two have had, and particularly you, Steve, that Frank has given you to do this book.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I started out by going, why are not more people learning from Frank and the type of storytelling that he does? I was particularly interested in his work in The Dark Knight and how he would do a 4-tier by 4-tier layout for his pages that could give you up to 16 panels of work. And then I realized you can't really ask a writer to write 16 panels in a page or 12 panels in a page in that structured order. So then I got to talking with Charles about how we could put this together in a way that would organically allow me to explore the storytelling and not make too much of a burden.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting process for me in particular because remember when I spoke about trust before, this is the way we have made this book is not something I would necessarily do with an artist that I didn't have this level of sort of background and collaboration and trust with. But which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But before I do, I would love to give the quick 1, 2, 3 of what the book's about.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So in the book, Daredevil's older. He's an older man, and his powers, as we know, are radiation-based. Basically, he was doused with that radioactive gunk when he was a young man. Lost his sight, but gained radar sense, gained heightened senses, all of the rest. So as the story begins, he is an old blind guy in Hell's Kitchen. He runs a soup kitchen. He is helping people. He is very settled in his life and what his past means to him and what his present means to him and what he expects his future to be. All those questions have been answered for him. It's winter, that's why it's Cold Day in Hell. Which gives Steve a lot of chances to draw beautiful snowscapes and things, but everything is kind of how it is. And then a dirty bomb goes off in Hell's Kitchen, which is a radioactive bomb, and it reactivates his powers. And so he immediately has radar sense again, his senses are there again, but he knows, because it's radiation-based, that it immediately starts to fade. And so he has 72 hours to figure out who set off that bomb and solve that, and essentially be Daredevil again for that tiny bit of time, that little tiny window. And for us, we thought it would be really interesting to explore the idea of somebody whose life, he never expected all of this to happen again. He's a very religious person. That's a big part of his makeup. He thought he knew what the plan was for him, and now this curveball being thrown into his life and his world sets off a really, really cool story that explores not just a really cool action-based story of Daredevil getting to be Daredevil again, but also what it means to go back to a life you thought you'd left behind. And I don't know, I'm super proud of it. It's really amazing.
A lot of fun, yeah, it has, yeah. We've been working on it, like I said, for 4 years.
Yeah. And Steve, you were talking earlier, and then we spoke a little bit yesterday about your approach to this book and the Frank Miller style of storytelling. And look here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 panels on the first page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 panels on the next page. Now, how about we put up another slide? If we can go back to the slides. Is it up there yet? Someone, there you go. There you go. Now, what about that page? Like your artistic approaches you were talking about, people just don't do this anymore. You wanted to stretch your legs, you really use the form of comics and the panel layouts. So.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, the structure of a 16-panel grid forces you to do different storytelling techniques. So when working with Charles and I put together the plot, and then Charles will go back and sort of parse it out into chapters that are a certain amount of pages long, and then from there I can sort of piece together a storytelling and add some stuff to it and drive Charles crazy. And
Well,
the same way that he was talking about working with Bill, I'll send stuff and he'll be like, "But wait."
Yeah, I mean, how am I supposed to fit balloons in that first row there? I mean, that's, but that's actually part of the process, right? Because, what Steve gets from me, we talk about what we're going to do, and then Steve gets a script that is, it's modified Marvel stuff. So it's page by page, this scene follows this scene, here's the dialogue basically, here's what people are basically going to be talking about. And then he goes away for a long time, and he comes back, and I see these incredible interpretations. So the next phase of this is going to be me going into that and finding ways to tell the story within these little slivers of moments that Steve has so beautifully illustrated, which is a really fascinating process for me as a writer, because I don't get to use the writing muscles the way I usually do, because usually I do all of the dialogue ahead of time.
Full script.
Yeah, full script is what I almost always do. And so this is a really more almost intuitive and thoughtful, and like, how do I do it? And Steve, we're both big music guys. We listen to tons of music, we talk about music all the time. He's like, well, we're just doing a jazz piece here. We're going, we're kicking it back and forth to one another, and it gets better and better with each pass, which has really been a really, really cool way to work. And I'm very grateful that you are trusting me to put words into that stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely, and we're really grateful for Marvel for letting us tether the line out of it and do some interesting stuff, because they're letting me co-plot and pencil and ink and color my own work. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. And just real quick, Charles, this is not the first time you've written Daredevil. You've been very familiar with the character, had a great run on it. Now this character here is a character named Muse.
Correct? Yes, Muse. So when I came onto the title with Ron Darney, I think this was 2015. I had a good long run, 2015 to 2018. I think I was on it for a while, maybe 2016. And one of the things I wanted to do was to explore the incredible character set and rogues gallery from existing stories like Frank's and many other awesome writers. But I also wanted to bring some new things to the story. And one of the things that's always really interested me is the way artists can become obsessives. And because everyone on this, we're all obsessive, I guarantee it. Like the way we think about our work, the way we don't let it go, the way that we define perfect for ourselves in these very specific ways, and we don't stop till we get there, is very much part of the process that makes our work resonate, I think. And so I wanted to create a villain for Daredevil that had that as their driving force. And so that's where Muse came from. The way that I will work on a script until it's done, he feels that way about essentially, being a horrible serial killer. And so Muse was a character that a lot of people responded to. He popped up in the dark art arc of the series that I did with Ron Darney on the incredible illustrations. And it's been really wild to see the response that character's gotten.
Yeah, and there's been a rumor. Well, we know for sure that there's a Daredevil Born Again TV show coming sometime.
Sure do.
There's been a rumor that Muse has been in that show. That's neither confirmed.
I've heard the rumor
tonight, but I was thinking maybe we could set the record straight and bring up someone who has the answer to that question.
Oh, great!
So,
I love that.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could put your hands together for Daredevil Born Again producer Sana Amana. Welcome back, straight from LA.
Thank you, producer now, guys.
Yeah.
I was an editor and now I'm a producer. This is kind of wild.
Kind of wild. But yeah, full circle here, coming back to the panel. As fans might know, Sana got her start as an editor up at Marvel, editing some of these classics that I'm sure you know. Hawkeye.
Yeah, clap, guys.
Captain Marvel, Kelly Sue co-creator of Ms. Marvel Kamala. So Sana, you also worked on Daredevil, so I guess getting on that show has become a big step for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it's like having been a comic book editor and what you brought to that transition, which had to be overwhelming at first.
It's so wild. It's actually really cool to be back because it feels like full circle in so many ways. And of course, Charles and I worked together on the Daredevil. His first Daredevil run, I was his editor. I'm so sorry. It was difficult for you.
It was fantastic.
No, I was great.
Yeah.
But no, it's actually pretty wild, and now I get to bring the things that we've worked on that we love so much, which is like, I love making comics. It's the greatest thing ever. And so to be able to now make the shows is really amazing. We were able to make the Miss Marvel show, and now making the Daredevil show, which is a dream come true because he's one of my favorite characters. Right, guys? My favorite.
And now the title of the show is called Born Again, but it does take influence in various times in Daredevil's life and their various runs from the comic book series, correct?
Yeah, it's a bit of a trick. It's not the direct adaptation. I don't know if we'd be able to do justice to Frank Miller's amazing work, but it definitely has, there's the spirit of Born Again when it comes to Matt Murdock questioning his identity, the ultimate face-off with, Wilson Fisk. Those two characters are just so interesting because that dynamic, that rivalry, is I think the stuff of legends. It's almost mythological how great and big they are. And so for us, that's kind of what we were inspired by and brought that into the show. It feels like the Daredevil you know and love, but we're moving them forward. It's a whole new chapter.
And then going back to what we talked about earlier, Charles was talking about Muse. Now there has been the rumor that Muse is going to be in the show. Is there anything you can tell this select group, small group of fans that are here in the room, and you're going to go out and not tell anybody, right?
Yeah. Social media's not up right now, right? You guys are Muse will be in the show, in Daredevil.
So what did it cost for that?
It was pretty amazing.
It was one of the greatest. The day when I got to go to the set and like see the stuff, and see the costumes, see the props, and talk to the people who were making the show, and see Sana work her magic to make everything happen, see the actors, it was really one of the coolest things I've ever done. And what I saw of the show is spectacular. I think you should be even more excited than you already are.
Did you text
Frank was also on
for
set, but Frank, I think we're going to talk about that a little later in the panel, actually. But now, Sana, the show was a Netflix hit, and then it went away for a while, and there were calls for it to come back as Disney Plus. Do you want to talk about that transition a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty exciting that, we have had a lot of different changes and transitions at the studio, and I think it's really thrilling and telling that, Kevin Feige wanted to continue to tell stories with these characters and with these actors in particular who are just legends. So, for me, actually, I, as a fan, am so excited that we get to do this, and I was walking around at one of the Comic-Cons and seeing the hashtag of, like, we saved Daredevil, and I think it's so true, like, you saved Daredevil. Hopefully continue to make this show and more shows is because of the fan love, so really thank you guys for bringing back one of the greatest characters.
Now, the show is set back here in New York City. You came back and you had quite a long shoot, but you talked about bringing back, not only the characters and continuing the show, but bringing back some of the actors as well that came to the show. And I think a lot of the cast did return for the new season, correct?
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome reunion. I mean, I can't say much more about what happened, but it was an amazing reunion, and we tried to sneak some pictures, but I was just watching all of them hang out together, and seeing Deborah and Eldon and John, and of course Charlie and Vincent together was pretty surreal and incredible. And they're just good friends, so it was good to see them hanging out and having a good time.
But after all that time had passed, do you know what it was like for Charlie and Vincent to get back together again, or?
For me it was great to see, but I don't know, I feel like that might be a question for Charlie and Vincent.
Is there a way we can ask them?
everybody.
Gentlemen, welcome to Comic-Con.
Give a big New York welcome!
So,
Yeah, what are you guys talking about?
so how's it feel to be back? Back in the suits, back in the, well, yeah, the suits, I guess, in different kinds, and back here at the show. You ready for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's so surreal. I'm just thinking back to our first appearance here. I was so nervous. I remember in the car journey on the way to New York Comic Con, like 2014, someone said, "Don't pretend you know more about a character than you do, because they'll know." So yeah, no, I mean, it feels. I'm pitching myself. We're still allowed to play these characters.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we've done a hell of a show, so we're really proud of it too. So we're coming back strong.
They're being very coy because they've been threatened not to say anything.
Yeah, we get send an email with a list. This is the things you can talk about. 2 lines. Here are the things you can't talk about.
I have it on my phone. Pass it around.
So here we are back in New York City at New York Comic Con, and New York is the bedrock of most of Marvel's comic stories, but also the bedrock of Daredevil. So, I mean, you guys filmed on location around the city, including here in Hell's Kitchen, correct?
Yes, we didn't do much Hell's Kitchen work in the original show, and we did in this one. So it was really fun to be kind of in the neighborhood, which has obviously changed a lot. You know, I always think of New York as like one of the leading characters in the show. It has to be here. There's no other way. That authenticity just kind of lends so much to the show. So yeah, amazing locations, and there's some fantastic new ones in there. Some iconic ones in the new show.
Yeah.
Let's go back!
You do make a Mets reference in Daredevil, so you're welcome.
And now I know you have your list, and there's not much you can tease, but Sun is here, so maybe she can help guide us a little. You know, it has been hinted that there's really different paths for Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk in this show than we've seen before. Sun, is there anything that you can let Vincent and Charlie talk about a little bit about the development of their characters?
I mean, I actually think this is, you know, what happened in what you guys have experienced is what happened. We're trying to continue to tell the story of these characters that you love. So it is it's obviously, it's certainly born again, but it is definitely a continuation of the classic stories. I mean, you guys can speak to it better than me.
Yeah, can we?
I'll buzz you when you say something wrong.
I think that they are on different paths, but what's cool about it is that the way that they feel about each other is still very present, and it's very intense when they're in each other's vicinity, which we do a couple of times in the new series. And I don't know, I try to be nice, you guys, I really do. There's just so much I want to say, but there's nothing really specific that I can make you guys crazy about. I'd like to.
Mayor Fisk.
Yeah, what about him? Yeah.
I think it's a new chapter for you both. I feel like it is definitely, it's the Daredevil and Kingpin that you know, but this is really a story about the identities of these characters and reflecting on both parts of yourselves, as Kingpin, as Fisk, as Daredevil, and as Matt.
Yeah, there's kind of a cool thing that the writers did, I think, which is that it's not referenced in so much, but there's an element to suggest that these two characters recognize that their obsession with each other and the hatred towards each other has potentially caused more outward damage than good, and that they kind of have to find a way to reconcile their differences early on. So in a weird way, from a story point of view, it kind of sets us, it kind of takes us back to the drawing board. So we can, there's an idea that they will trust each other as long as neither one of them steps out of line. Obviously, you can imagine how that goes, but it's a nice place to start a season.
It's cool to see that, like, these, I think what we learned in the process of the long process of trying to make this show is, like, these characters are kind of two sides of the same coin. And I think that was really interesting to explore, is sort of the darker tendencies, but the different missions that each of them have. Because I think ultimately both of them fancy themselves like the protectors and saviors. They both love New York. And I think that's an interesting way to align those characters, and we try to find ways to be able to tell that story.
And these paths that they're on in this season, a lot of them have to do with their personal lives as well. And, you know, I know that Zura back is playing Vanessa, my God. And she's just so wonderful. Vanessa gets to do some pretty great things in this season. She's such a wonderful, Ayala is such a wonderful actress, as you guys know if you saw the episode. And then he's got the same thing. We get to go home with his guy. I had nothing to say about that.
You mean Daredevil?
What guy?
Oh, Matt.
Oh, with my other half.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there. he's around.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the characters' personal lives for Matt and for Wilson Fisk, before you both got back together for this show, you did make some other appearances on some other D+ shows. Charlie, you as Daredevil in She-Hulk, interacting with Jennifer Walters. And Vincent with you on Echo. And Hawkeye, of course. So, what was that like? Was it weird leaving the safety of Daredevil, going out and exploring interactions with other characters and working with other actors? Or
It was weird, yeah. I mean, it was fun, obviously, because I love playing this character. But it was the first one. I think we talked about this before, like going into Hawkeye and fitting into that series. You know, because I needed to help service that story. That's my job as an actor, to service the story. So it was weird, you know, to come out of our darkness and of the Netflix series and what we did in that, and then come to what could be considered at times a lighter approach. And but I still, you know, I've always stood by the fact that I'm just playing the same guy in a different circumstance, and that's my job. So it was fun because of that. And then in Echo, we went, we had an incredible lead actress, Lacqua. The relationship between her and my character was very intense. It was a kind of a father-daughter relationship thing, and that was dark and more comfortable, you know, a place for my character to live. It's what I've always yearned to do when we continue this character, is to make sure that we live in this kind of gritty, boots on the ground kind of dark place. You know, I think that's where the show works best. And so we went in that direction, or they went in that direction with Echo more so, and it worked really well. I think we really kicked ass in that. And I think that a lot of that has to do with where we are here with this season. It proves that it can work in a dark place, and we can still have fun and be creative, and not a drag, but in an exciting, you know, cool way. So here we are. We're now going into this, when we finally figured out how to do this show that we're going to show you in March. was so exciting to start and to really play it the way that Charlie and I always wanted to continue. And I think you felt the same way, and a lot of us involved in the first iteration of when we tried to do it really were yearning for a better way, and it worked out. It's amazing. We got everybody we needed to help: producers, writers, directors. It's fantastic. It's a lot to look forward to.
Charlie, in your appearance in the She-Hulk show, you were in the yellow costume, and in the teaser that I've seen, there've been a couple different costumes, and down at the booth, at the Marvel booth, if you haven't been, there's the couple costumes from the actual show. But back in red, but Charlie, were there any decisions that were made regarding the costume this time around, and changes you wanted to make, and how you wanted to look?
Oh, so the costume, I feel like those decisions are made way higher up than me. So I'm not really consulted on that, and that's probably a good thing.
You were just happy it was comfortable. You're move.
And they gave me 3 zippers, which means that I compete. Because in the past, that was I'd be like, guys, I need 10-1, and the production are like, right, it's a 45-minute break.
I just think it's funny that it takes 3 zippers to pee.
I will happily describe to you the mechanics of 3 zippers. But it does. You need 3 zippers. No, you need 3 zippers. Because the way that you can't zip, it has to zip up at the top, right? So you can't just have one, because then you can't tie it. So you have to have the second one to bring down.
I just know there's a lot of people in the audience thinking it's really only one.
The cosplayers know.
It's only one zipper if you're comfortable with a superhero showing his fly. No, the suits have been amazing. They're kind of, I get asked a lot like which one my favorite one is. I really don't have one. I just love that we get to kind of play old hits a little bit. The one that we have in this new show, I just think the color is so cool.
Yeah.
It's a really cool Daredevil red. And my only hope is that I one day graduate to the DDs.
Now, going back, Frank and Charlie, we were there. You visited the set on the last day of filming, actually, right, Frank? And what was that like, seeing everything brought to life? I met Charlie and a certain other someone who was there.
They were just closing things out. Everything was shut down. Nobody was there. They said, "Okay, now we can say we let them see it." No, it was fun. It's I mean, there's nothing like a set because the actors are all so committed, staying in character, even though when they don't have to work for another hour and a half. I mean, I met the Punisher and I wasn't sure whether he was going to shoot me or not. And it was just there is, if you haven't had the occasion of being to one and knowing the material and everything, you haven't really had the experience of seeing a hive of activity where every person there is working hard. Mm-hmm. It may look at first like a lot of people are just standing there. Those are the ones who are on call, ready to go into action at a moment's notice. So that when someone says, I need a 2-headed tuning fork, they can hold their hand out and have one. And meanwhile, you got the actors who are all going through their paces. It's amazing how many are working out on set just to make sure they're in tone for the individual scene. And the costumers are just they're magicians, because they put things together that sometimes that are only designed to hold together the length of the take, and they're held together with pins, but they look like they look absolutely great on the screen.
And zippers.
Speak briefly just to add on to that. So when I went to the set, one of my favorite parts of it was that I got to go to the prop room, the prop master's room, and they had, it was like you see the weapons, you see the level of detail that they put into every element, every, badges, campaign stickers, if those might be needed for anything. And the thing that really connected with me was that there was, now that we can finally talk about news, they had a lot of news-related things there. And so for me, seeing that, I mean, Steve and Frank are old hands at seeing their stuff adapted to screen. For me, this was like the first time I'd been on set with one of my things. And it was incredibly meaningful, incredibly powerful. And then there was this moment later when I was up watching a scene be shot that the prop masters came up and gave me a prop, a news-related prop that had been used in the show. And I have it at home, and it was incredible. So I am so grateful. I've told you already, but that was amazing. So thank you.
I mean, let me jump in with another example. It was on another show, on Cursed, as a matter of fact. At one point, as we were discussing story points, I said, could property get me some Dark Ages torture device? Within 20 minutes, I had a table covered with stuff that would give you nightmares. I mean, this is you gotta understand is that people think of working for the screen, whether it be TV or movies, as being this sort of luxurious, slow-moving process with people who step off their yachts long enough to get the pictures taken. And in fact, these are the most intense places of hard work you can find.
That's great.
Charles, you talking about news?
I am, yeah.
So I didn't know we were allowed to do that. That's great. Yeah. So I cannot wait till this time next year, because
I know
there's going to be such
right?
a cool costume.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many users at your Comic Con.
Which will be a little scary, but it'll be amazing.
Now, Charlie, I know there's not much more that we can say, but is there anything else we can possibly share?
No, I think it's not. I think, let's wrap it up. Should we do that?
Shall we wrap it up, everybody?
Alright, before you do, sorry. on a very personal note, my two young children are in this room. So, guys, if there's young children in here, and especially my two, hands over ears and shut your eyes. And I'm being serious, because this is, I don't know, this is quite scary. I'm gonna do it.
Thank you.
We can turn the lights down.
Tell me everything. Look, somebody's got to protect the streets.
Wow.
You guys want a date? March 4th.
Hey, Vincent, I gotta tell you, I don't think you're nearly imposing enough.
So Vincent, Charlie, now that the fans have seen it and they've got a glimpse of things to come, any final words or teases you want to offer on things that were there for the show?
Well, I'm glad you like that, because there's a hell of a lot more coming.
How many episodes someone yelled something?
Oh, 9 episodes.
All right, so Daredevil, Born Again, March 4th, 2025. If we could get a huge round of applause for all the special guests. Studios and Masonic. It's going to have a special Daredevil Born Again piece of artwork from the TV show, from the show. This is going to be Daredevil 14. It's one of the big news moments in comics very early on, to give you a better hint of what that character is. And you can get it as you leave the room in an orderly fashion, please.